Robert Massey, the cornerback from North Carolina Central University. And, Robert, a couple of surprises in the first round, huh?
Yeah. The biggest surprise to me is the fact that Louis Oliver and players like Andre Rison are still available. And it's scary because in my situation, it seems now that the first round is almost impossible.
Well, there is, as Bob Lee mentioned, quite a big difference between the first round and the second round monetarily. I think we mentioned in talking yesterday that the difference in signing bonuses alone can be as much as $500,000 in average between the first and second rounds. I know you're sweating it out right now.
Yes, when you're talking money, most definitely, because you want to make as much money as possible, so I'm scared.
What about Miami? I know that you and Drew were talking about the possibility of going there, and that pick, Sammy Smith, surprised you?
Shocking. You know, I expect Louis or Donnell to be picked at that point, and with the running back being picked, that's like a setback for the defensive backs in this year's draft.
All right, Robert Massey, we'll be here with him throughout the day until he does get picked. And, Bob, I've got a question for you. What happens if a team runs a penalty flag?
We wait for Dick Papero to call a two-shot foul, I think, actually. All right. Money makes a difference. Lee Steinberg, the agent, said, you know what a first-rounder is? The qualities that somebody taken on the first round. Last year, for example, Wendell Davis, the Bears, signing bonus $500,000. Marcus Cotton, who opened the second round when the Falcons took him, just got under $300,000. So between those consecutive picks, you see a big difference. On average, last year, a first-round bonus was worth nearly $700,000. On average, last year, a second-round bonus nearly $240,000. So, yes, it makes a great deal where you are selected in this draft, as the card should be on its way up as we await to see what New Orleans will do. Jim Finks, Bill Kuharich, and the pressure on to get this team over the hump and get back in. Who do you think, Mel?
I like Andre Rison here. I don't know how you can pass up a player with his ability. And, of course, Louis Oliver still there is a great player, and I think will be a future Pro Bowler. So I think the Saints are in a great position to get value with this pick and also fill a need. You talk about speed at wide receiver. That's something they don't have.
First-round selection. Wayne Martin, defensive end, Arkansas.
Wow. Wayne Martin, defensive end out of Arkansas. Now, you and I were talking earlier this morning before we started about players whose fortunes have plummeted, and he was like #1 on your hit parade this morning.
He had dropped back. He was a top 15 pick when the season started, and he had dropped into the second or third round on most teams' boards. And I think if you look at this pick right now, this is a forced pick for need. They have definite problems on the defensive line. If they're going to take the best defensive lineman available, it would be Phil Hawkins. You see Wayne Martin here. He's got some pass rush ability. He got his weight up to about 280, but he missed that Cotton Bowl game against UCLA.
Is he a head case? I think that's a question scouts are going to be asking because he was suspended. He also missed spring practice in '88 for disciplinary reasons. You're not drafting necessarily Kiwanis Citizens of the Year all the time. This is a guy who's put a lot of weight on in college, but whether indeed Bourbon Street can get to you.
Well, that's that Cotton Bowl. He had an opportunity there to really get after Troy Aikman and show what kind of pass rush ability he has against a team like UCLA. And, of course, he missed that particular contest, and I thought he had dropped down. I really believe this is a forced pick because of need on the defensive line. And if they were going to take the best defensive lineman available, I really believe it would have been Bill Hawkins.
He didn't run well at the combines either, right?
No,
he was over 5 seconds.
He did virtually nothing at all to solidify a first-round position. And I think when you look at this pick, you have to take value. And we'll be talking about Andre Rison and Louis Oliver, and these two players will be Pro Bowlers, and I doubt seriously if Wayne Martin has that kind of ability.
Well, you know, history will prove if picks are reaches. The Jets certainly have a leading morning line candidate for that with Jeff Lageman, and now Wayne Martin, defensive end, Arkansas, taken by New Orleans. Denver is up next by virtue of a trade made today with Cleveland. They've got about 13 minutes, and we'll be back in 2 of those minutes after this.
After rigorous examination of the Mercedes-Benz 300E.
So to give up number 13, they get number 20, number 47, plus a 5 and 9, and really only one more defensive player on the board. Wayne Martin just went if Denver still wants to go defense. 2 guys that have plummeted. Andre Rison, much as his college teammate Lorenzo White, Michigan State, did a year ago. He went a lot lower than people thought. For what reason, we don't know. And Louis Oliver. They have fallen by the wayside. And, Tommy, we talked that the Broncos have good safeties. They also have good wide receivers, so those 2 guys don't seem to fit here, do they?
The 2 best athletes on the board, Rison and Oliver, still left, happen to be the 2 positions that the Broncos are pretty substantial at, the wide receiver and the safety spot. I still like the next choice to be Cleveland Gary. I'd like to see him get the big fullback to take the pressure, at least some of the pressure off of John Elway.
Yeah, but I mean, they fired their whole defensive staff. Some friends of yours, they tried to get Bruce Smith for $1.5 a year. I got to think they go defense, which Joe might lead us to
Absolutely,
Hawkins.
Bill
Right?
Hawkins. I think when you think of the Denver Broncos, you think of their absolute ultimate need, it's defensive help. You saw what Pat Bowlen tried to do by offering Bruce Smith as much money as he did. When he put that dollar sign out there, all he was saying is we need defensive line help right away. Bill Hawkins is probably the best guy on the board right now in the first round. My guess is they will go defense and they will go defensive line. See, he's going to save himself. Now, you figure $1.50 for Smith, he's probably going to have to only pay about $700,000-800,000, so they've got a little bit of money. By the way, Denver, by making the trade that they did with Cleveland, gets a star right next to their moves for this year's draft. I think they are the stars right now with that trade.
As long as they don't make picks like Ted Gregory, who they realize they make a mistake in and have to trade in the middle of the season to New Orleans, which was your play of the year, right? When their number one draft pick, right?
And the thing about Ted Gregory was that, and you know this if you're around the Bronco organization, this kid was reported to be 6'2", 6'2.5". When they spotted him at camp, the guy was about 6 feet tall, so questionable sighting there from the staff last year. But yes, I agree with Joe. I think they've done an excellent job so far this year, depending on the pick they make.
Argument for the metric system, at least, to be used to be used at Denver. Denver is next. Then the Rams go, and they do have 2 first-round picks at number 21 and 26. Then it's Colts, Houston, Pittsburgh's second pick in the first round as the Merriweather trade went through, and then Chicago. So now we're getting into teams well, Denver didn't make the playoffs last year, Tom. This just in. But now we're getting to teams that are among the better in the NFL. And one thing that we could say, and we'll talk about when we get back, is a guy like an Andre Rice. And
that's right.
He may be upset that he's falling down, but he may be going to a team that could get him to the Super Bowl in the first year. We'll be back with the draft continuing in a moment. All right, we are back here in New York as we await the pick of the Denver Broncos, their first-round selection coming up. As you know, that we've been going all across the country. We have live remotes in many places, like Kevin Kiley out in Anaheim, but we're not going to go there right now. See, we're going to make you wait. Good things come to those who wait. We will go to Anaheim in a moment, or shortly. The Broncos have 7.5 minutes left with their first-round selection. I want to go back and just throw out a little tidbit. With Seattle's selection of Andy Heck, the tackle from Notre Dame, I believe that, first of all, it's Seattle's first time they've ever gone offensive line since 1977 when they drafted Steve August. It's also the first time that Chuck Knox at Seattle, before that Buffalo, before that the Rams, first time that Chuck Knox has drafted a lineman in the first round since Dennis Harrah and Doug France to replace guys like Joe Sabelli. I mean, are we going back a little bit in football? So Chuck is not a guy that drafts linemen first round that much, but when he does, all he asks is player personnel focus. Is this guy a football player who can play 10 years? And France and Harrah were 2 very good ones, and they have the same thing in mind with Andy Heck. So that's just a little bit of tidbit. Another tidbit on the Chicago Bears, whose 3rd first-round selection will be coming up. Last year, remember, the Raiders had 3 first-round picks, and they went Tim Brown, Terry McDaniel, and Scott Davis. The Bears, with their 2 first-round picks so far, have gone Donnell Wolford, Trace Armstrong, and then they have a 3rd first-round pick. The last time the Bears had 3 first-round picks was in 1965. One of those picks was Gale Sayers. Another one of those picks was Dick Butkus. I would say that those were pretty good picks, and if Trace Armstrong and Donnell Wolford can follow anywhere near those footsteps, the Bears would be awfully happy with this draft. There's the understatement so far, and I didn't even have to say it was the best athlete available. Now let's go out to Anaheim and enjoy Kevin Kiley. Kevin?
Thank you, Chris. Out here, the Rams have to be delighted about the way the draft is going so far. They lost Johnny Johnson, their leading interceptor, cornerback, to free agency. They also lost Gary Jeter. He was second on the team in sacks. Their main needs are the defensive line. Mostly defense is what the Rams are after. They're after, obviously, some young people to carry them through the next 8 or 10 years. Bill Hawkins is a guy that they wanted. Trace Armstrong is another guy. Rondy Wetson out of Florida is also another fellow that they wanted. Now, the only one out of those 3 that are gone are Trace Armstrong. They also need some help at the inside linebacker position, but it's a weak draft for that. I have to believe that the Rams people have a feeling that they're going to get some pretty good picks. Now, it took 3 guys to carry their draft picks into the draft room the other day. They have 17 picks overall. They've got 5 picks in the first 2 rounds, or 6 picks in the first 2 rounds.